Okay. Greetings of the day, everyone. I'm privileged to welcome you all in the third edition of Orange City Literature Festival, organized by SGR Knowledge Foundation in association with GH Raisoni University, powered by Raisoni Group of Institutions. I am Priyanka Sharma, and I'm delighted to be your anchor for today's session, one where I'm having a fan moment myself. Stories I Must Tell, The Emotional Life of an Actor by Mr. Kabir Bedi in conversation with Miss Manjula Narayan. For Kabir Bedi sir, this actor, as Shakespeare once said, all the world's a stage. Kabir Bedi sir's career spans across Bollywood, Europe, and Hollywood. He is best known for his European series Sandokan, the American television series The Bold and the Beautiful, the James Bond film Octopussy, and his Bollywood blockbuster Khoon Bhari Maang. In the theatre, he has played Othello, Tughlaq, Abraham, and Shah Jahan. For his lifetime achievements, he was bestowed at least highest civilian honor, a knighthood. He is also a voting member of the Academy that awards the Oscar. Recently, he published his best-selling memoir, Stories I Must Tell, The Emotional Life of an Actor, to great critical acclaim. The adventurous journey of a middle-class boy from Delhi who was an international, who goes on to become an international star. He also talks of his relationships, as well known as his work in films. A radio broadcaster, advertising filmmaker, voiceover specialist, event presenter, motivational speaker, international actor, and now an author. I think it's just a delight for anybody who has seen him for the longest time to be in these many kind of personalities, if I can say so. It's an honor to have you with. It's even more delightful as we have Miss Manjula Narayan, who will be in conversation with him as the moderator. Manjula ma'am is a book editor, Hindustan Times. She hosts Books and Authors, a weekly podcast. She lives in Gurgaon with 3 dogs and a family. When I asked her what makes her the happiest, she said family, peace, and quiet. Now, pandemic was different for many people, and for Manjula ma'am, it started from an opportunity to allocate resources of the studio, which translated into her starting the podcast and connecting with people she absolutely loves speaking with and sharing stories with. It was a candid experience to speak with her off the camera, and it's now an honor to have your presence with us today. I once again welcome you, Kabir sir, and I once again welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Priyanka, for a very generous introduction to me. And I'm delighted to be speaking to Manjula again, who I spoke to many months ago when the book was just being launched. And I remember our conversation well, and I'm sure we'll have another wonderful interaction here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, please, ma'am.
Yeah. We had two conversations actually. Once on
Yes,
on the podcast and once on another video thing, and both of
right.
them were great. Yeah, both of them very interesting.
Wonderful.
So before I just let my audience be arrested with your undeniable charm of both of you, to be very honest, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the support of Westland Publication as their association is valuable to OCLF. And without skipping a moment, let me just give my two very dynamic individuals to my audience today. Thank you.
Thank you, Priyanka.
Thanks. Right. So it's nice to be talking to you again. And so should we just start with the yeah?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah. When I read the book for the first time, the first thing that struck me was how frank you were and how unstar. You know. So do you want to start with that? Talk about was it an effort or because it seemed effortless, and you were very honest in the book, which is kind of rare.
Yeah, the reason people say it's a very honest book is because I've talked about things that people normally don't talk about, things that people hide, things that they gloss over or talk briefly about and then move on to other topics more pleasant to them. For me, once I decided that I wanted to write this book, I was very clear that I wanted it to be honest and let the chips fall where they may. Because, I always had this thought that the truth will out. And I didn't worry about a lot of criticism or things that were written about me, etc. What I discovered is that truth doesn't always out. You have to, at some time, tell your story. And that's what I decided to do. So once I was clear I wanted to write this, I decided to be frank and write it as simply, cleanly, and honestly as I could, and be authentic, and be have a dialogue with my audience, and say, look, this is what happened, warts and all. My triumphs, my tragedies, my strengths, my failures, my mistakes, um, setbacks, all kinds of things. Talk about it, because that's what I'm always interested in a story. If somebody just tells me the highlights of their lives and all the great things they did, my eyes glaze over. What's the drama? What's the drama? What's what's the comeback? What's the you know? You can't just be all sugar coated candy. There are downsides to you. All of us have dark sides. All of us make mistakes. All of us have frailties. I think sharing that is what makes it interesting. So that was my effort to just put it out there, um, tell it as honestly as I could, and share my life in the most meaningful, emotional, and dramatic way that I could.
Okay. Okay. So, when I was reading it, I noticed that, you've had, there have always been points in your life where you grabbed a chance, or you just, you know, like life told you that, okay, this is the end of this road, went on to another one,
Yeah.
and uh, you followed that path. So let's talk about that. Like when you left Delhi and after the debacle after the Beatles vanishing, you know. So let's
Right.
talk about all that.
See, Manjula, my life has been full of turning points, what I call transformative points. Many of these have arisen from crises. And I always say that crises, dark and desperate as they seem at the time, are actually points of power. Because if you see it as an opportunity um, to reorder your life, to refocus your life, to look at other options in your life, that's where the strength comes from. Now, I begin my book with my famous interview with the Beatles, where I was the only Indian reporter to break through to the Beatles as a cub reporter working with All India Radio, and how I got that interview and what happened in that incredible interview. That's all in the book. But the important thing relating to your question is that but after this broadcast, I went to get a copy of the interview, and I found that they erased the tapes of the interview, because those days Doordarshan had no money. They had to reuse tapes, and the backroom boys had no idea what I'd given them. It was broadcasting gold. They could have played it forever. And I was so depressed and so angry. But it made me think, do I really want to work with these people? Do I really want to spend the rest of my life here? And having decided that I really wanted to explore other avenues rather than this dead end I seem to be stuck in, I left Delhi with 700 rupees in my pocket to seek my fame and fortune in Bombay, um, which then led to everything else. So, in a strange way, I have to thank the backroom boys of All India Radio for giving my life a whole new direction. Because if they'd done the right thing and given me the interview, I might still be there working my way up the ladder. So, you have to count your blessings.
Yeah. So then you came to Bombay, and your book is really interesting because it describes the whole advertising scene, and before you get into the Hindi film industry. So let's talk about that, because that itself is a lot of very interesting stuff. The
It
Bombay.
is. The next transfer, not many people realize that I've actually worked in the corporate world, in the advertising world. I was the film chief of Lintas and then of Ogilvy and Mather. And that was almost 4 to 5 years of my life. Um, because I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I trained myself making advertising films. So, but the big transformation was when Alec Padamsee cast me as Tughlaq, and suddenly film producers came calling. That was the moment where I thought, well, join the industry. You, you Nobody's asked you to make films if you're sitting outside the industry. So I joined the industry as an actor, hoping to become a filmmaker. But it meant leaving the security of advertising, where I was doing extremely well. It was one of those moments where I had to think, do I want go into the uncharted waters of Bollywood, um, and not being, I had to, but not being really a Bollywood person in the sense that I wasn't mad about watching films, but I was mad about acting. I loved acting. And it was a huge decision, and I took that decision. And Bollywood, I have to thank for many things. Um, because, they gave me recognition. They made me known across India. My first few films that became hits established me as a name in India, which is why the Italians discovered me. Um, so, so I have to thank Bollywood for that. People say, "Oh, you could have done more things in Bollywood." I could have, but I spent 20 of my best years outside India. So how would I have done that? Besides, my biggest Bollywood hit, which is Khoon Bhari Maang, happened actually during my Hollywood years when I was shooting a film with Tom Selleck in Hawaii, sitting in my room in Honolulu watching the sunset. This phone rings and it's Rakesh Joshi saying, "I've got a film for you." I said, "Great, but why me in Honolulu? You've got actors in Bollywood. Are they on strike?" And he said, "No, no, the hero of my film turns out to be a villain. And so no hero wants to do it. Uh, the if I put a villain, there's no surprise. You're the only one who can carry it off because your image is neutral. You can play anything." So I came back for that film. So there were all these transformative moments. And the trick was really keeping my career alive on three continents and three film industries: the Indian film industry, the Italian film industry, and Hollywood. How do you do that in an age when there's no social media? The fastest means of communication is uh, probably the fax or telex, earlier. Um, and it was so difficult um, to do this, keep the trick of seeming to be everywhere all at once without the support of social media. And at a time when air travel was very expensive and foreign exchange allowed to Indian actors or Indian people in general was very limited by the government. At one stage, you were only allowed to take out $10 when you went. So I think the government was, yeah, that was during Indira Gandhi's time. That was I think the government was banking on Indians' capacity for a little jugaad when they made those rules. So, but that's what happened. That's why when I went to Rome, I didn't realize it was going to be so cold. And I was freezing. And there were no credit cards those days. I didn't have the money to buy warm clothes. And the very generous art director of Sandokan film walked me to a store and said, "Buy what you like." I said, "I don't have money." He said, "Don't worry, you have plenty of money. Just buy the clothes now. Pay me back when you can." And his kindness I never forget. I never forget people who are kind to me, people that help me. And there are a number of people that have helped me along the way, as friends, as associates. But it's really a story of, like you were talking about, transformations that happened in my life. And leaving Bollywood and going to exploring the whole Italian film situation was again a huge risk. And then an even bigger risk when you leave with a big star in Europe and go to Hollywood and have to start auditioning for roles. That's also adaptation. That's also adaptation. So there's been lots of transformative moments in my life and difficult decisions to make. And maybe something that I could have done differently, but at the end of the day, here I am. I'm still talking, I'm still writing about it. I'm still sharing what happened on that journey, professionally and personally.
But tell me, how did you work up the nerve to, you were such a, you continue to be a big star initially. So how did you, make that, did it strike you that perhaps I shouldn't, go to Hollywood? Because then you have to start all over again.
Yeah. That's a very valid question because at one level, it is certainly a huge risk to take. But at another level, every actor wants to go to see what it's like and if they can make it there. But there was another very, very important reason. I was so identified with this character that I played, Sandokan. It became an iconic character, still is. It is an iconic character in Italian film, television. Some directors told me, look, we love you, Kabir, we adore you, but we can't cast you because we're making social films and political films, and suddenly Sandokan walks in and changes the story. So I realized that I had to step out for a while, do other films, and then come back to Italy. And that's what I set out to do. But what happened as a result of that is when I went to Hollywood, things started happening for me out there. I did a James Bond film, I did Ashanti with Michael Caine, other things happened. So Italy then became something I would visit from time to time while I pursued my Hollywood career. So, but I still came back to Italy and did a lot of work. But like I said, those decisions weren't easy decisions to leave the success of Italy and to start auditioning in Hollywood, where no one didn't care in those days whether you were a success in Europe or not. Hollywood is such an insular community. They don't care what happens in New York, let alone what happens abroad. At least then. Today, it's very different. Today, they are definitely trying to internationalize. They're writing roles for foreigners. They're writing roles for different ethnicities. I mean, the success of Priyanka Chopra is giving great joy. But they are giving her roles she can play with her ethnicity. My biggest problem was Hollywood wasn't writing roles for people like me. They weren't writing roles for South Asians. So I had to adapt again and play the roles of many different types of foreigners. Because fortunately, I have the kind of look that can play different foreign roles, not just Indian roles. So my life has been about adapting to change. And that's really, as Darwin said, the species that survives is not the strongest or even the most intelligent. It is the species that learns to adapt. And that's what I've done all my life. And I think that's why I'm still standing to tell the tale.
Okay. Okay. So, and also what I found in your book was your personal life, I mean, and we read about it in the gossip rags and stuff. But that was a different picture of you, right?
Yeah.
And this is you're saying your truth, right?
Yeah.
So you've been frank about it. So talk about that. Whether it's about your marriage or,
Manjula, there are many stories in my book, and exploring my relationship with Prathama, which was a very unconventional relationship at the time. It was, we were both very unconventional, but then it was an unconventional age. I mean, the whole 60s and the 70s was a time of change, cultural change, sexual revolutions, people demonstrating for peace, hippies, psychedelic clothes, the music of Bob Dylan, Joan Baez, all these wonderful new sounds that were happening, musicals like Hair. So we wanted to be part of that change. Now, starting off as unconventional people, we entered a very conventional marriage. But then, as I've explained in my book, I explained and shown how a normal marriage becomes an open marriage, what it is like to be in an open marriage, what are the consequences of open marriage, and all the excitement and the dangers of it. So I've explored that very openly because I felt that that was something people needed to know because Prathama was an extremely colorful person, free in certain ways. And I also fancied myself as being, a withered kind of guy, but not quite as windblown as her. So how that changes me, how that experience changes somebody, that I've explored in my book. And then equally, I've talked about what happened with Parveen Babi because, when Parveen finally left me and came back from London, we'd gone out, we moved abroad together. and I had her cast in the next major series that I was doing with the Italians. But she left all that, came back because certain films of hers became successful here. But what that emotional journey was of Parveen's, and that too at a time with all the complexities of mental problems happening at the time of my greatest success, that was also a strange sort of contrast happening at the same time, two things happening at two levels. I've talked about that in great detail as well. I think it's of enormous interest. That one level you're being lauded as, you know, uh, the next Errol Flynn, the next big star in Italy, and at the other end there is somebody that's suffering from certain problems and also paranoid about your success and other
Yes.
things that follows. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? And how do you deal with people with mental health problems, especially at a time of such euphoria? So it's extremely dramatic, all this, and I thought it needed to be shared. And I needed to tell my side of the story because
Yes.
what the Indian press made out was that, you know, her breakup with me had caused her breakdown. That wasn't the truth at all. And I needed to clarify that. I needed to say, look, guys, this is what happened. I tried my damnedest. But in the end, it didn't work. And yet, there was this strange parallel careers that we continued even after I separated. It's too complicated to explain in a soundbite. But really, the complexity of human relationships is extraordinary. All of us are unique people. Nobody knows what happens between two people in a relationship.
Yes.
And I have tried to share what exactly did happen. And I think that would be of great interest to people, not only because it happened to me, but for lessons they can draw for their own lives.
Yes. Yes, and when you say that you tried your damnedest, I mean, you even talk about your father, right? Who was
Great
so
psychic healer, yes.
in Italy. So talk about that, but he couldn't help her either, right?
Well, my father had this he was a great teacher, he was a philosopher. Uh, he'd been a revolutionary during the Indian struggle for freedom. And he transitioned to religion through a series of incredible experiences, which I describe in my book.
Yes.
And he had the gift of healing also. I've quoted one incredible case of a woman who was diagnosed to die in 5 months from a form of cancer, and he took her under his wing, and she lived for another 30, 40 years, another 40 years actually. And this has been recorded in a book by a professor of oncology in Italy, Professor Maurizio Grandi. It's one of those miracle cases. But that apart, I felt that his ability to heal people would help her. But for various reasons that I describe in my book, it didn't quite happen that way. And it saddened me greatly. Because, you know, when people suffer from mental problems, the biggest obstacle to curing them or containing that problem is the fact that they don't want to accept they have that problem. They deny it. They block it out.
Yes.
And you can't help somebody who doesn't admit they have a problem and sees your attempt to say there is a problem as something hostile, something that they resent, something that they fight back with great ferocity to say, I'm not that. So this was the biggest problem. I think it's important that people discover this for themselves in the book because I find it impossible to condense that whole experience in this conversation.
Yes, your book has many sort of touching moments, and I found it very difficult to read the bit. I've told you this before. The bit about your son's death.
Yes, yes.
So if you want to go over that.
Manjula, the story of my son is particularly poignant because it's really a story of a father trying to prevent his son from committing suicide, a boy who's schizophrenic. boy who at the age of 25 was on the verge of a brilliant career in the infotech world, having graduated from Carnegie Mellon University. Um, Absolute genius, and yet struck down by this and despairing for of life because he didn't see a future for himself. And how do you try and prevent that boy from committing suicide, which is what he said he wanted to do, which is how my chapter with him begins?
Yes.
How do you stop that? It was a very difficult chapter to write because, firstly, those were wounds that I won't say healed because the scars remain, but I'd come to terms with. And now I have to go back into that, into the emotion of that, into the scenes of that, into the drama of that, into the despair of that, and recreate it for my book, for my readers, to know what it feels like to be in that situation. And this mattered so much to me because I really wanted to share that experience. And it was one of those traumatic experiences in my life. And I think this is the chapter that touches people the most. Many of them drove to tears in that chapter because it is such a sincere accounting of what happened and the tragedy of it all.
Mm. So, I mean, what about your the other son? You Adam, you have to save him from kind of like the the effects of, because he was there, right? When it
He
happened.
was there, yeah, he was there. And it's like you don't want one son to think badly of the other son.
Yes.
And you have to try and do whatever you can do to shield
Yes.
his respect for his elder brother. And that was also, you deal with many problems at many levels at that stage. But, even now when I'm talking about it, it stirs things within me because it was such a deeply troubling experience to go through. And I feel that I need that, I need to share that in the way I shared it in the book. I can't condense that. All I'm saying is a father tries to prevent his son from committing suicide, a schizophrenic son. What happens and what are the consequences of that? And how do you deal with it? And when your son does commit suicide, how do you try to hide it? Because people often do. Do you announce to the press? Do you try and make a media circus out of it? All those very sensitive issues, because there is a constant battle between people's right to know and a celebrity's right to privacy. The fact is, there are no rights here; they're just competing desires, and you have to find a really fine balance between sensationalizing something for your own benefit and not keeping it secret to try and seem that everything's fine, everything's normal. Those are big decisions and dilemmas that you have to deal with and face.
Mm. Okay. So, I think the book makes for a great read because you've been honest and you've kind of balanced everything out, and you haven't kind of tried to put this fake respectable veneer on things. So you just put it out there. This is the life, and this is how I've lived it, and that's why
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
it's
yeah,
a good read, I think.
yeah.
So,
Um, I, my life has been a roller coaster. I've seen extraordinary highs, I've seen extraordinary lows. Um, uh, Even after the immense success of Sandokan, because of bad investments, I faced bankruptcy and how I rose from that. All those things that I've had to address in my life. And having been through um, um, three marriages and three divorces, till I finally found somebody that I really feel good with, and I've been together with for the last 15 years in the form of my wife, Raisoni Group, who's finally given me the kind of love that I needed. Um, that it's been a rough journey getting there. And there are all kinds of extraordinary people along the way. And no matter how you slice it, there's no such thing as a painless divorce. There's always pain in divorce, no matter who's right, no matter who's wrong. But if you meet your economic responsibilities, if you go back to remembering what brought you together in the first place, what is it that you liked about each other, I think you can have an enduring friendship, even after divorce. And I regard it as one of my accomplishments that I remain friends with all my ex-wives. But it's not easy. It's not easy. But I did it, and most remarkably, they were friends with each other as well. And what you never want is to get your ex-wives together because they've got all kinds of things to say about you. But they did. But I did have a Christmas dinner with two of my ex-wives and Nikki, who was my wife at the time, in Los Angeles. Beautiful picture of that dinner in the book. And I survived that too. I mean, they were very kind to me. So I thank the universe for many things.
Okay, I think that should be it. And thank you for talking to me. And Priyanka, I think you should.
At the outset, I must say that this conversation is going to contribute how I perceive and make decisions. Because when you said that, particularly one thing I'm taking away for the longest time is going to be that it's not about rights; it's just about competing desires. So there are snippets that are like now going to be imprints in my memory for the longest of time. And I just want people, because I think to know you both and to know your journey is to love you. Because there's so much to know. There's so much to know. Thank you for being with us, Kabir sir, making time, and thank you, Manjula ma'am, for not giving up on us and the platform and joining us. It is an honor. It's a privilege to be hosting you two, and we're just happy to make this happen. Thank you.
And I hope that people at the Nagpur Film Festival take a special time to buy my book, which is now a certified national bestseller. The good news is that. But thank you for talking about this, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about my book. And I hope book lovers find great joy in reading my book.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Priyanka. Thank you, Manjula.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Raisoni Group, a vision beyond.